The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. This is a phrase oft attributed to Vladimir Lenin. Now, whether or not he actually said this is up for debate. But what is not up for debate is the fact that the Soviets, their czarist predecessors, the modern Russian state, as well as governments around the world, have and continue to use their intelligence services to directly lead their opponents into disaster. To go with the example of Lenin, his internal security forces, the GPU, a forerunner to the KGB, carried out a program known as Operation Trust. From 1921 to 1926, the Soviet secret police owned and operated the anti-Bolshevik monarchist Union of Central Russia. Its purpose? To identify the regime's opponents, stymie their efforts, and mark them down for elimination. The agents of Operation Trust helped convince White Army generals like Alexander Kutepov to hold off on military action. They lured dissidents like Boris Savinkov back into the country where he could be apprehended. And they sowed fear and distrust in anyone who may have thought of joining an organized resistance to Soviet power. This kind of deception falls very much under the label of black propaganda, which I talked about in a previous episode. Of the many types of black propaganda, each can be attributed to one of three categories, in a system I call WMD: waste, mislead, and divide. So without further ado, let's look at our first category: waste. Waste refers to the means by which you fritter away the enemy's precious resources. His resources include his money, his manpower, and perhaps most importantly of all, his time. The longer your enemy is stuck dealing with some fruitless errand, the less time he's out in the political space fighting you. And any waste of his time is almost certainly a waste of those other resources as well, not to mention his sanity. So how do we go about doing this? In the case of wasting his time, this involves bogging him down in pointless busywork and dead-end conversations. It could mean using the enemy's social space to quiz him on some piece of ideological minutia. Was Stalin a real communist? Are Sicilians white? Does it matter? These questions have pretty much no value beyond preventing people from focusing on their real objectives. In internet parlance, this is known as sliding. Ask stupid questions and let your target respond to a brick wall. Rinse and repeat. For an example of this, look at just about any thread on the website 4chan under the poll board. A veritable fountain of right-wing dissident agitprop has become utterly clogged by members of a rival forum who routinely post obvious questions, inflammatory bait, and pornography to draw users away from their work of investigation and exploitation. But what about moving beyond the realm of bad faith arguments and attacking, say, an enemy's finances directly? Well, we can actually look at how profiteers exploit their own side. The majority of crowdfunding projects are basically scams already. Why not create a fundraiser for some kind of political stunt, and then have it not pan out? We already saw this with the London Trump baby balloon. The creators promised a massive float that would soar above the Parliament building and greet the president. Instead, we got this. Final price tag? Around $45,000. I'm sure all of that went towards the balloon. If I didn't know better, I'd say the whole debacle was a clever ruse by a troll who just pocketed the money. Now, of course, Theory and Practice does not endorse any illegal activities, but something to consider. Speaking of illegality, our next strategy: to mislead. This encompasses any strategy in which you are directing the enemy towards an action which is not only fruitless, but actively harmful to them and their cause. In essence, setting them up to fail. Napoleon Bonaparte said to never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. Well, not only will we not interrupt our enemy, but we may just give him that extra little push. Now, this is something done quite frequently in FBI sting operations. In the Bureau's case, this usually means combing the internet for someone maladjusted, providing them with fake weapons or explosives, and then swooping in at the last second to save the day and give the public the illusion that they're doing something useful with the taxpayers' money. We saw them provide fake explosives to a Bangladeshi immigrant who, for some reason, was allowed into the country, as he attempted to blow up the Federal Reserve Building in New York. Why, we've even seen the FBI seek out and ensnare diagnosed schizophrenics like Jerry Varnell, who attempted to blow up a bank in Oklahoma City using more fake explosives provided by the Bureau. That was a little on the nose, if you ask me. But regardless, it is a tactic which works. If your opponent has violent tendencies, why not egg them on and laugh as they reap the response? Or if they're just easily suggestible, you may want to start up a fake hashtag campaign in order to make them look crazy, if not just stupid. Freebleeding began as a prank. 4chan trolls successfully convinced a fairly large number of feminists that it would be a good show of pride and solidarity to publicly menstruate all over themselves. Naturally, the target audience of this psyop, normal people, rightfully saw the feminists as a pack of disgusting and deranged weirdos, further alienating the movement. As I've said before, be creative. Find your own freebleeding, your own van full of fake ammonium nitrate. The ideologically possessed are certifiably insane, so you can make them do all sorts of funny and destructive things. And you can count on their ideological possession for our last piece of the triad: divide. Now, no matter their similarities, people will always find things to disagree about. For fanatics, small disagreements can turn into blood feuds, and politics suffers no shortage of fanatics. The art of division lies in the formation of wedge issues. These are issues which are utterly insurmountable and force individuals to pick one side or another. These divides can be ideological. If you have a coalition of, say, moderate conservatives and hardline Catholics, abortion could be framed as something with which there could be no compromise. How could these so-called conservatives ignore the killing of babies? Note that just because a wedge can divide a group does not mean it will divide that group. Per my example, American Catholics have been fairly reliable allies of the pro-abortion party. But to give an example of what could be called concern trolling, take the 2016 Democratic primaries. Supporters of Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders already had plenty of reasons to hate each other. But it took some enterprising Trump supporters to really throw gasoline on the fire. I was one of many who, when in the presence of Bernie supporters, claimed the primary was stolen from Sanders through superdelegates and rigged votes, and that Clinton was a disingenuous establishment crook who had sabotaged the one candidate who could beat Trump. Then immediately turned to the Clinton supporters and condemned Sanders as a splittist and a senile old hippie whose fans were all misogynistic white men. And notice the white male descriptor. The only divides greater than ideology are ones based on identity. This is where the blood feud truly comes to a boil. A person can change their mind, but they can never change their DNA. Take the Democratic Party as a whole. It's the party of diversity. Among the groups represented are upper-class whites, Asians, Jews, blacks, illegal immigrants, homosexuals, and Muslims, to name a few. Each one of these groups has an ongoing feud with one or more of the others. Obviously, this is a deeply divided coalition, and whether it's the Crown Heights riots or Islamic congresswomen boycotting Israel, tensions can and do flare up. To lend support to one faction against another would not only frustrate the party's efforts to organize, but may even cause a split and the formation of two smaller and collectively weaker parties. Whatever the divide between groups, find it and exploit it to its fullest. That about wraps up this episode. The advice given may seem devious or even cruel, but as the classical tactician Karl von Clausewitz pointed out, war is the continuation of politics by other means. It's a dirty, dirty game. And to quote history's other great tactical genius,
"But there's nothing wrong with dirty fighting."
Really?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Because fighting is wrong. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to fight, you're already wrong.
Yeah.
So if you're going to dirty, you might as well dirty fight.
Yeah.
Because you're already there.
Yeah.
You're already at the party.
Right.